Welcome to the next episode of KapVista Klips. Today we have Alex from Tecarbo. How are you?
Hi, not too bad, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad for you to be here.
Yeah,
What we do with KapVista Klips and what we try to understand is we want to do a deep dive into companies, but we want to have a free flowing conversation. I want to find out about the founders. I want to find out about their journey, and I want to find out about what they're building. Right. So this is the
yeah.
point of KapVista Klips. Now, let's just jump into it. I want to understand your background. How did you get to this point? Your experiences, because this provides investors an insight into your personality. That doesn't come out in a pitch deck. So tell me about you. How did you get to this point?
Well, my background is mostly IT. So I started working as a software developer and being connected mostly with the financial industry. So investment banking and pretty much in 3 or 4 different locations in the world. Australia, sometimes spent some time in Europe, in UK, and probably for the most of the my career has been Singapore for me. So I moved here and with my family, we worked here for the investment banks. But in 2014, I started up a company to work in a completely different industry. It was still related to the technology, but it wasn't software development, and it wasn't related to, let's say, fintech at all. So it was a medical device company when we developed an electrical muscle stimulator for the athletes, so they can recover better after the trainings. And this project we started with Indiegogo campaign. So basically collected some funds on Indiegogo, had some pre-orders, and then worked with the manufacturer to produce the units. Obviously, it included also the software part. So the unit has a firmware. We did some mobile application to actually to pair with this unit. So basically, it was IoT type of a gadget. So it was completely different experience for myself, and started more like as a side gig, but after a while turned into pretty much serious business, which we sold out to one of the largest, I would say, or market leaders in the rehab industry, a company called Tecarbo in US. It was a first successful, I would say, exit for me, and then I started looking into what to do next. And in that period of time, I was building my house in Australia, and I was building it as an owner builder. So I ran through all these different experiences of how to build a house and what needs to be done, how to organize the teams, what the issues are. And obviously during that period, the COVID hit us as well. So it was probably enough time to think about what can be improved in the building process and how I would, what kind of mistakes I did, what kind of issues I have seen while being on site. And pretty much after COVID, I started thinking about maybe what I want to do next. And one of the things which came to my mind is see how I can actually improve the building industry, or let's say disrupt the building industry in Australia. See what can be done better, see what can be done, what can be improved, and especially in the condition of, let's say, increasing regulatory, I would say, strict regulatory requirements when it gets to things like thermal efficiency. People start thinking more about the houses they want to live in, more about the sustainability of the materials. There is a very strong interest in green building, so anything related to sustainable materials as well as eco-friendly houses. So with all these factors considered, I started researching the what is actually available out there on the global scale, right? What kind of materials are available there, and I came across the woodcrete, which is quite interesting material. It's been around for quite a while, since, let's say, probably 1930s, last century. However, it didn't really get a lot of traction in some places like Canada and Europe. It did, In Australia, there is a distributor of the, let's say, the insulated concrete forms, the blocks, which can be filled in with concrete made from the woodcrete material called Durisol. But this is pretty much it. And obviously, they are only building like 1 or 2 houses a year, so it's not really something which is popular. So I thought that it's probably a good opportunity, and I started looking more into woodcrete. I figured out that you can actually produce the larger, bigger panels from the woodcrete, and they still can be load bearing. And by learning the properties of this material, I figured out that probably it's something which will be interesting for me to turn into more like a business project in Australia. I would say startup, but later on it can be turned on into like, I don't know, into a bigger business, right? And the whole idea was that with the current trends in the global building construction industry of the off-site manufacturing, manufacturing done mainly at the factories, can be either in the form of panels or in the form of modules. It doesn't really matter. But the whole idea is that you manufacture most of your house at the factory, then you bring it to the construction site and then assemble there with just I don't know, a few days of effort. So you have significant improvements when it gets to the time frame, because at the factory it can be constructed much faster in a more regular way. I would say in a more I would say consistent way when it gets to the quality control. Also, the number of people you employ at the factory is always fixed, so you don't have to deal with some random, especially post-COVID, right? There were a lot of high shortage of labor, so you don't really know who will be working next on the next project as a builder, because let's say the teams you generally work with can be already like busy and fully booked for the next half a year. So sometimes you have to deal with some random teams, right? And this actually can impact the quality of the product. So this is why the factory manufacturing, offsite manufacturing was very attractive concept for me. So I decided to combine this offsite manufacturing concept with the new material, or say unique material like woodcrete, and start thinking how can I actually develop or design a technology which can produce these large panels made from the woodcrete in Australia. And in Australia, meaning that we have to deal and source the local materials. So one of the most attractive materials which we're currently looking into is radiata pine. And I figured out that there are a lot of, I would say, radiata pine we use for framing, right? We use for pretty much most of the house existing traditional build projects in Australia right now. So, and it's also a sustainable kind of product, because mostly radiata pine is actually grown on either plantations, either in Australia or New Zealand, and it is something which is already sustainable. But the problem is that whenever you produce the frame, you cut the log, you have a lot of offcuts, which sometimes they find the use of them. They probably transfer some facilities they turn into the mulch. Some facilities they turn into the wood chips. They deliver to the let's say landscaping, or to the agriculture, where they use this I would say the wood chips as a temporary substitute for pretty much for the animals. It's like animal bedding for animal beddings, right? But however, in some cases, they just deliver directly to the waste, and they decide the waste companies what has to be done with it. So some of the waste companies are smart enough to turn into the pallets, which are then used for pretty much burnt out, right? But others can just burn them out directly, or dig into the ground and just keep it there, right? So basically, there are multiple ways to reuse these offcuts, because they are low grade. They can't be used for anything else. They are pretty small. So we decided that it's actually a good opportunity for us to come out with another second life, to give second life to the soft cuts on one side, use Australian cement, use Australian labor, and design all the machinery, right, equipment to produce this wall panel. So I investigated and researched and put together a small team with people who already had some expertise in producing the woodcrete panels in Europe. So we put together the team, we designed our own equipment, we tested it, we manufactured it, we tested it, and we decided that it's a good, pretty much MVP type of a manufacturing line, which you can now export to Australia, start producing the panels there, certify the technology, perform all the necessary testing which we need to perform for the Codmark certification, and start pretty much rolling it out to the market. So I talked to a couple of builders, one of my, I would say, building friends as well, who was helping me to with advice when I was building my house, and he also got quite interested in this technology. So I'm keeping him up to date for probably over 18 months already, where we are, etc. So they decided that yeah, it will be a good opportunity for them also to try it out. Whenever we have it available on the Australian market, whenever we have all the certification needed, all the approvals which we need, yes, they want to try and build the house from our panels. I think it's more or less one of the ways to test the market. But second way we are talking about is that we want to expo, to go to Sydney Expo. We want to produce some of the panels for the Sydney Expo and build our booth over there from our panels. So we put together it as a module. We bring this module to the Sydney Expo. We talk to a lot of new customers and new builders who might be interested. Collect the leads from pretty much, and then work with this list to generate more letters of intent while we are working on the certification of the technology. So this is pretty much where we are and what is our plan, but obviously a little bit about myself as well. So basically, I'm more or less a serial entrepreneur right now, and familiar with the bootstrapping, familiar with the process of setting up the startup, putting together the teams. So we are still at this stage. We are also at the bootstrapping mode. So pretty much all the funding which we had is being done by the founders. So we invested our own money into the process, but now we're at the stage when we think that it's a good time to attract the another investment, the external investment, and probably ideally from the investor who can actually help us with the getting some traction on the Australian market, which we are currently focusing on. So ideally, the investor from Australia, from within Australia, or with some, I would say, good connections in Australia, who can probably introduce us to the builders, maybe introduce us to the developers who might be interested to use our technology, and then help us to pretty much scale up in Australia. So yes, right now we are working on the first factory. It's in Central Coast area near Sydney, but we are already looking forward towards let's say a more high performance manufacturing line, the design, and the second factory, third factory, maybe like in Victoria and in Queensland, where we can actually produce the panels within the, let's say, 200 kilometers radius to the bigger cities with a higher demand for the housing, which can provide us flexibility to pretty much serve the orders without spending too much cost on the transportation, because in any offsite manufacturing, transportation is one of the factors you have to consider. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. So the product itself is a modular system that you've created to be able to put together. It's basically fit to order.
Yeah. It's not exactly modular. We call it more like panelized construction. It's panels in the form of panels. Although yes, we can in the future we can consider building modules. But when you talk about modules, it means you have to have a flooring as well. You have to have some roofing as well. We think that the same technology can be used for structural flooring as well as for the roofing. We want to consider this in the future, but as of now, we want to just focus on one thing, which is walls,
Yep.
and do it well, right? Once we do it well, once we have first customers, once we have interest, we can obviously consider investing into things like structural flooring, for example, as well as further, once we have panels and the flooring, we can consider modules.
Yep. So a customer can send you their designs. You can make the panels to suit, and they can build a house effectively in a few weeks as opposed to a few months.
So we have a piece of software. It's a Revit plugin, which we created ourselves as well, for which takes the existing project and breaks into the panels for us, based on our understanding what kind of panels we can produce, how it's best to break it in the most optimal way. So it's not only just produced in the most optimal way, so it's also transported in the most optimal way, right? So we designed this proprietary Revit plugin just for these purposes. So basically, what it means that you can send us your model, 3D model, and within a day or two, we can provide you with the list of the panels and how exactly your house will be broken into the panels, and obviously estimate and quote based on the number of panels, based on the number of connections between the panels. We can quote pretty much very accurately how much it's going to cost you, not just produce, but also to deliver and install. And we are not just installing as well. We are also making sure that everything which comes to the walls is supervised by our team. So whenever the electrician comes in to put the wires into the conduits, which we already pre-installed in the factory, or whenever the plumber comes in to put the pipes into the walls, our I would say supervisor is on site at the same time as well, and overlooks the process, advises him the best way to do it, the best practice. So basically, we spend time more or less training the plumber and the electrician the best ways, and actually it saves quite a lot of time for them as well, because as I said, we already pre-designed the services whenever we put it together the panels. So it saves a lot of time during the electrical and plumbing roughings for the builder, because the plumbers and electricians spend much less time on site. We also do the finishes, so we can help. Let's say if the builder is and the customer is okay with, let's say, with the standard render, our team, whenever the house is all the panels installed, the roof is installed, windows installed, and scaffolding is still in place, our finishing team can come on site and within just a couple of days finish the full house with render, because we only need the external decorative piece of render, because the base render is already applied at the factory. That means that they just come with this machine, with spraying machine, and within a couple of days just cover the house with the one coat of decorative render. Can be done really quickly, and from my perspective, it costs to us, the cost to us is very low, just because we use the same people we employ in the manufacturing, so we already pay them salary, etc. They just come on site, bring in the machine, and two of them, as I said, can finish, let's say, 400 square meter house in 1 or 2 days, which is very cost effective. As well, we import the render. We select one of the best renders we can get from the global manufacturers. Mostly we use the silicone-based renders, which are not actually heavily used in Australia due to the cost mainly, and secondly due to the, I would say, most of the market is actually rendering market is currently held by two companies in Australia. It's a Dulux on one side, and what's another one? I don't remember. But anyway, so Dulux probably is the main player, right? And they mainly develop the acrylic rendering, which is cheaper on one side and really, I would say, easy to produce and easy to apply. But in our case, as I said, we already have a base render applied. So applying the higher range render like silicone renders makes more sense. Yes, we pay a little bit more for the render, but in the end of the day, we save a lot of time and cost on the labor. So our rendering still ends up cheaper to the builder than if he would just come and hire someone to render his house, like Hebel House, for example. Same applies. Yeah.
I was just going to say, so the product itself is a cost-effective way to build a house. The labor costs are all, you can
building envelope. Yes, not the full house, obviously, because the walls, as we know, we only take probably like 15 to 20% of the house cost. But still, yes, the majority of the expense in one say unit will be coming for the walls. Yes.
So from a customer's perspective, they can have a house. The cost of the house can be reduced because you can adequately predict what the cost of the walls and the render and everything is.
Well, in the end of the day, it's up to the builder to decide yet how much he wants to charge the end customer. But I can say when you compare versus the traditional technology for the builder himself, the cost ultimately the cost savings will mean that yeah, you probably get 10 to 15% savings in the cost, but not just savings in the cost, but more importantly, savings in the time and the time you use to produce the house. And things also like indirect savings, like let's say HVAC, aircon system, which you install in the house. With our walls, with our house, we require much lower, I would say, power aircon system, because we have our house is much more airtight. The panels, the insulation levels that the panels offer, the thermal insulation levels, actually means that the actual usage of the air cons will be times lower. So we require, let's say, if generally the same size of the house will require 20 kilowatt system, our house will be okay with a 10 kilowatt system. And this is indirect savings. Also indirect savings to things like paint. Because whenever we do we produce our walls, we deliver our walls, they're already rendered from the inside as well. And then our team applies the fiberglass wallpaper, which is already pre-grouted to the walls, and it's paint ready. So we provide the paint ready finish to the builder. And then when he gets the painting team on site, they save around 40% of the paint, because of this wallpaper is already pre-grouted, and it only requires two layers of paint instead of 3. So you save around 40% of paint, and then you save obviously some time on the labor as well, on the painting labor as well, because it takes less time to actually paint the house. So a number of indirect savings as well.
Okay, so tell me about the raise. How much you're raising? What's the use of funds for?
Well, we want to raise up to $1 million USD. Obviously, this is maximum target, but if we can, let's say, raise anything above 500,000, it will probably be enough sustainable way. But also, it also can be tiered, right? So, with mainly right now, the main target in front of us is to deploy the manufacturing line to our Australian factory facility, right? And obviously, it takes some welders, some fitters, laborers to come over on site and install the equipment, right? This will be done within March, and we'll pretty much already have funding for this, right? We can use our existing funding for this. But the next thing is certification. So this is one of the, I would say, lines in our expense list. We're talking about probably around $150,000 needed to complete all the laboratory testing which needed for the load-bearing walls to certify and to produce the CORMARK certification. Generally, our timeline here is about 2 to 3 months. We can achieve this because we already pre-tested our walls with the same tests in our R&D facility. So we are confident that all the tests will be passed by the walls. We just need to do this testing in Australia to make sure that it's done locally, right? Second thing is I want to start putting together the team which will be working on the factory and producing the orders. So this team has to be permanent because otherwise, like if we just hire people for temporarily, then we need to train any new people which come on site and keep this going, right? It makes sense to probably find 3 or 4 factory workers, invest some time in training them, make sure they are motivated and I would say to stay as a permanent employees. Maybe have some, I don't know, some stock options to them. I don't think it's very common in Australia, giving stock options to factory workers, but I think it's one of the ways to motivate the team and make sure that you have I would say, a basis, right? Because the same team later will be actually training the other teams, right? Other workers, etc. So yeah, hire some people which you can start training together. So it comes to the labor, salaries, expense. Secondly, obviously, myself as a founder, I think that, and obviously my co-founders as well, for us, it was a side project, right? And to this stage, I had to do some other work. I have to do some consulting here in Singapore to make sure I sustain my family. If investor wants us to commit full time, we either need to have some income from the business itself, so we can pay our salaries, or we can use some of the investment to actually start paying ourselves salaries until we get the unit economics in place and start seeing some profit, right? Obviously. And thirdly, I would say another piece of expense is actually to buy some equipment. So the equipment which we currently have at factory, we just have there to make sure we can manufacture the first panels and let's say deliver them to Sydney Expo, produce, showcase, right? But if we're talking about large scale manufacturing, which allow us, let's say, to manufacture 50 to 60 square meters of panels per day, we obviously need to buy some things like silos, for example, where we can store our render material. Some things like forklift, probably makes sense to invest into one rather than rent out, because mathematically, probably within 6 months time, the forklift you buy will probably will be more feasible than just renting it out, right? Because obviously understand that rentals are not always cheap. So we need to buy some equipment, probably around $100,000 total, to make sure that we can do the large scale manufacturing with these people which we want to hire as well. So it's more about connecting points together, right? So this investment is not something which we want to, let's say, open up a second factory. Probably for the second factory, we should talk about Series A kind of investment, but it will be enough for us to design the line, to do all the R&D needed, to make sure that this is the second high performance line. This is how much it's going to cost. We think that we can probably develop and design a line which can fit probably into, let's say, the budget of $300,000. So $300,000 US is all needed to open up a new factory, to start a new factory. So we just find the suitable factory from the space perspective, from the location perspective, from, let's say, electricity providing perspective, right? And then we produce the equipment, probably the total cost of, let's say, $300,000 to start a new factory. And new factory can start already producing orders, let's say, from the month 2, and meaning that we probably can break even on that specific particular factory within, let's say, 3 to 4 months time.
All right.
When it gets to the scaling things up. And that means that at that stage we can even think about opening maybe 2 or 3 factories at the same time. Let's say one in Victoria, one in Queensland, one in Perth, to cover the major Australian cities, right? And this is why I think the whole concept of manufacturing, which can produce, I don't know, let's say our current factory probably can produce around 10 houses, then average size, I would say double-story houses a year in one shift. If you talk about 2 shifts, you're probably talking about, let's say, 15 to 20 houses. And let's say if you talk about high-performance manufacturing line, which you're currently designing, you can probably talk about 40 houses a year. And one house, the revenue from one house is around 120, 130,000 Aussie dollars, right? For the both external and internal walls, yep, produced and delivered. So we are talking about, I'd say, roughly like 5 million plus type of revenue from one factory.
Yeah. Okay.
But at a very good margin. Yeah.
Yeah. we'll leave it there. I don't want to take up too much more time, but thank you very much for jumping on. I think the opportunity that you have, and if we can prove, you know, Australia is a good testing ground, this is highly scalable, especially internationally.
Yeah, New Zealand is definitely something we should consider straight away, because code mark in Australia works as a code mark in New Zealand. So basically, with the same code mark, we can build in New Zealand. Then we had interest in countries like Southeast Asia, so Indonesia, for example, which is currently experiencing the housing boom. We can start looking into US and Europe with the right partners, obviously, because we already have interest from the investors in the United States, but they're saying that, guys, as yours in Australia, we cannot do much to support you here. But if you come over to US, or you come over to, we also have like a company in Europe, then obviously we can start thinking about it. So with the right partner, we think that this technology can be really, really scaled up very quickly.
Yeah. So you're have a really good opportunity to scale this globally, using Australia and New Zealand as a solid testing ground. But thank you much for jumping on the call with me. It has been great to chat to you. I'm
no worries.
Interested to
see. Sorry if I have been a little bit more talking than answering your questions, but yeah,
very informative. But thank you very much. Anybody who's interested in finding out more about Tecarbo and the technology, the details will be below. Reach out to me and my team, and we can connect you to Alex. But thank you very much for
okay, no worries. Thank you. Take care. Bye.